Okay, Dr. Muhammad, you can start.
Yeah, can I start? Yes.
Yes, please.
Okay.
Very good afternoon to everyone. I would like to start with a very famous saying. Some days it is hard to find motivation, and some days motivation finds you. I welcome you all on behalf of Dhofar University and the Center for Teaching and Learning to another exciting CTL webinar on enhancing students' motivation, which is a big question in our mind, how to motivate our students online. What will work for them and what will not is really a big question. Here I would like to refer to a study on motivation and instruction, which is widely referred article of Deborah J. Stipek, which is also included in the Handbook of Educational Psychology. In this article, she tries to lay the groundwork for classroom practices that teachers can utilize to maximize student motivation levels, and she recommends to define success in terms of mastery and personal improvement rather than in terms of performance relative to others. She also recommends to make rewards contingent on effort, improvement, and good performance. She also recommends to provide diverse opportunities for exploration and experimentation so as to increase the chance that students enjoy the learning process. But today, in online learning, it is really crucial that students should not only take ownership of their own learning, but also that they actually enjoy the process of learning. As instructors, for us, the real challenge is to facilitate this enjoyment by trying to make our lessons fun rather than laborious and painful. In other words, the future of online education is coming, and it will incorporate not only instructional sensitivity and responsiveness, but also adaptive technology with a fusion of virtual and old-fashioned reality. Yes, the big question for us today is how to motivate our online learners, especially during this pandemic. How can we support this transformation in education? How can we motivate our students online and get them excited about the course or subject matter? With this, I would like to introduce and invite our today's speaker, Dr. Willie A. Renanda, who is a language teacher, educator with extensive teaching experience in Asia. He currently teaches applied linguistic courses at the National Institute of Education, Nanyang Technology University, Singapore. He is a frequent plenary session speaker at international ELT conferences and has published extensively in the area of second language education. His publication includes language teaching methodology and anthology of current practice, which was published from Cambridge University Press in the year 2002. As another research publication, Student-Centered Cooperative Learning was published with Springer International in the year of 2019. Additionally, he maintains a large language teacher professional development forum called Teachers Voices on Facebook. So with this, I would request our speaker to please start with the session. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mohammed. That was a very, very nice introduction. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to be here this afternoon with you. I know it's 2 p.m. In Oman, and it's 4 p.m. in Singapore here. Before I start, I would like to say hello to you. Can I ask you to turn on your video so that I can see you, and also your microphone? Yes, please. Thank you. Thank you, Tanga.
Yes.
Yes. Everyone, please have your video on. I know, in an online situation, it's really difficult to connect to the audience, to the students, unless you can see their faces and unless you can hear their voices as well. Please have your video on and also your audio on.
You have to excuse us because it's a weekend for us. We are at home, so in a relaxed manner.
Oh, it's okay. It's okay. I just want to see you and say hello to you. Vijay, is there anyone we can ask your colleagues to turn on your video and audio? Well, teaching in the classroom, teaching in the classroom is difficult. Now, teaching online is even more difficult, especially when you can't have eye contact with the students or with the participants in the classroom. Okay, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. The rest of you are still hiding. Another 1 minute, please. Turn on your video and audio. Okay, on the count of 3, I'm going to start. Those of you who already have your video on, please stay on. Stay with me for the next 30, 40 minutes or so, okay? Ladies and gentlemen, let me just share my screen here.
Please mute the mics.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you very much. The topic today, as Mohammed mentioned early on, motivation is probably one of the most important thing in education. In fact, a well-known educator once said that there are three things in education that are extremely important. And the person says, number 1 is motivation. And number 2 is motivation. Muhammad, continue. Number 3 is also motivation, yeah? So 3 things about education, 3 things that are most important. Number 1 is motivation. Number 2 is motivation. And number 3 is motivation. Now I'm going to ask you this question. Now, this is a very, very important question that we need to ask ourselves on a daily basis. And I do ask this question myself almost every day before I come to class at the beginning of the semester and also at the end of the semester. How many of our students are motivated? Now, I have some answers here. Please say yes or no. 25% of my students are motivated. Yes, no, maybe? Can I hear your voice? 50%?
All should be motivated, 100%.
100%.
50%, yeah.
50%? 100%. Okay, that's what we want our students to feel motivated in the classroom. But very often, the number of students who are motivated may not be as high as we want them to be. So there you go, 100%. Even in my class, I can't always say that my students or all of my students are motivated. I think Mohammed had a very good point early on that, sometimes the answer is this, it depends. When you teach in the morning, your students may feel motivated. When you teach in the afternoon, Everyone is tired, the teacher is tired, the students are tired, and the students may not be motivated. At the beginning of the semester, the students are usually very excited, very interested, but towards the middle, their level of motivation begins to come down. Kavita, is that right? Isn't that right, Kavita? Yes, you're nodding your head. So
Yes.
Motivation can go up and down. Sometimes it's very difficult to control motivation. Let me just briefly, very, very briefly, I'm not going to talk about the theories of motivation. There are hundreds out there, and there's a huge literature on the topic of motivation. I am just going to go very briefly, just in one sentence, describing what motivation is, why motivation is important, and number 3, the how. The how is what I am planning to do with you this afternoon, going through tricks and strategies and ideas that we can take away in today's session. So let me begin. What is motivation? Very easy. This is what motivation is all about. Motivation is the desire to learn, the will to learn, and more importantly, if you are able to get them really excited about learning, that's the thrill to learn. Yeah, so very simple, very easy definition. The will and the thrill to learn. And that is our job as well. As you will see later, our job is not just to teach knowledge, it's not just to teach skills, but also to ensure that the students have the will and they feel excited about learning as well. So the will and the thrill. Why? Why is motivation important? Again, it's very straightforward. To me, the answer is very, very simple. If the students have no will, if the students have very little interest in learning, then not much learning can happen in the classroom. So these two are just the basic ideas that I want to get to share with you. Now, the more important question to ask ourselves today is how? How can we help our students become more motivated? And that is the focus of my sharing with you this afternoon. So visually, I want us to think about how we can help our students who may not be motivated on the left-hand side, and they will probably be saying, I can't and I won't. They are not motivated, and to make them become more motivated, and so that they can tell you that, hey, teachers, I can and I will. They become more motivated in the classroom. But what is the thing that we need to do in order to help the students who are not motivated to become more motivated at the end of your lesson or at the end of your program or your course? There. So this is the main takeaway, yeah, which we are going to read together. Kavita, can you read this together with me? Kavita, read this together with me.
Yeah, yes. Sure.
Yes,
the best way to motivate students is to improve the quality of our teaching.
Exactly. Yes, please underline the key thing is to improve the quality of our teaching. Let me tell you why. Let me explain why. Improving the quality of our teaching is something that we can do, that we can change. If we are not doing a good job teaching, then we can change the way we teach so that our teaching becomes better, so that the students become more excited and interested in our lesson in the classroom. There are many other things out there that can influence the level of students' motivation. For example, class size. There's not much you can do. Yeah, if your class is big, we have to live with it. There's no way we can change that. If you teach in the afternoon, for example, can you change that? You can try asking your head of department to give you a morning class, but that is something that you can't always change. But teaching is something that is within you. Teaching is something that is under your control. Teaching is something that you can improve on. So my session today actually is about how or what we can do as a teacher to make changes in such a way that the students get very excited and interested in our lesson. There you go. So how do we improve our teaching? I'm going to share with you six ideas tonight. And after tonight, I promise that you will remember these 6 ideas for many, many days and for many, many, weeks to come. 6 T's. Yeah, there you go. Now, these are my 6 T's. You don't need to take notes or anything because at the end, I'm going to pass on the QR code to you so that you can download my slides. Yeah, so 6 T's that I'm going to share with you. What are these 6 T's? Can you suggest some T's, Kavita? What about one example of a T that we need to, or we can do to make changes to the way we teach in the classroom?
Can I say something?
Yes, you can.
Teach with passion.
Very good. Anything else? All starts with T. Okay, there you go.
Technology.
There you go. Technology is one of them. Okay, I've got 6 here. Let us look at the 6 T's together. Yeah, you have teaching method or teaching methodology. You can change that, right? You don't have to do, the way you teach can be different. The way you teach can be more exciting. So that is something that is within your control. The text, that's your teaching materials. Yeah, that is also within your control. You can pick a course book and you can change the course book. You can revise the course book. That is under your control. The next T is task. The kind of activities that you ask your students to do, you can do it in many, many different ways so that you know exactly whether and to what extent your students are excited and motivated. T5 is test. Now this one is a little bit tricky, but I think we can think about ways to improve the assessment practices that we do in the classroom. The last one is technology. T6 stands for technology. Now this is particularly important at this time because we are now using quite a bit of technology to engage students in the classroom. The first T, T1. What is that T1? In the middle, red color. If you can guess what T1 stands for, I think we can go home right now. Done. Everything is done. Yes? What is the first T? T1? Tanga?
Please teach.
Yes?
Is it our temperament?
No.
Or else?
Oh yes, of course you can modify, you can change your temperament and all that, but that's not what it is. I put it right in the middle there because I feel, and a lot of research tells me that the first T is extremely important. Okay, 3, 2, 1. No, it's you. The first T is you. The first T is me. The first T is the most important person in the classroom. The first T is the teacher.
Teacher.
There you go.
I put it.
Oh, you did? Okay, very good. So, okay, 6 things, yeah? There are 6 altogether. The first one is the teacher. Number 2 is the teaching methodology. Number 3 is the text, the teaching materials. Number 4 is the task, the activities. Number 5 is the test, the assessment. And number 6 is technology. So these are 6 ideas that I'm going to share with you. What can we do? What can we do with these 6 T's so that the students become more interested, more excited, more thrilled when they come to our lesson in the classroom? Let's begin the first T, the teacher. Again, the research is very strong here. The research is very clear. The teacher plays an extremely important role in the classroom. Now, the teacher here includes almost everything. The way you talk, the way you explain, the way you dress, your hairstyle, the way you connect with the students, everything about you can have an influence on your students' level of motivation. If you walk into the classroom looking very tired, looking uninterested, looking unenthusiastic, for example, do you think you can expect your students to be excited about your lesson? The answer is no, no way. Yeah. So everything about the teacher is important. Now, here are some ideas, elements or variables or factors that researchers have looked at very carefully. Things like relationship, your relationship with your students, whether or not you have a lot of knowledge in the subject matter. Delivery refers to the way you explain things, the way you teach in the classroom. Credibility refers to whether and to what extent the students perceive you as being somebody who is credible. What you say is believable. Fairness is another one. And then humor is also another factor that has been seen to influence the students' level of motivation. Teachers who are humorous are often perceived to be more interesting, more exciting, and more motivating from the student's perspective. I would like now to ask you to scan this QR code. Please use your mobile phone and scan the QR code. I'm using a small technology called Mentimeter, which is a survey that you can use to get responses from your students.
How can I scan it, sir?
Yeah, scan the QR code, and then it will take you to the website, to the application called Mentimeter. If your scanner is not working, you can go to, you can Google, you can type in menti.com, and then you can type in the 8 numbers there. Tanga, are you able to get to the menti.com? Yes?
I'm trying to scan that one now.
Okay, yeah, scan it one more time. Okay, this is like an online questionnaire. And with this application, you can get an immediate result on the screen. Mohammed, are you able to do that?
Just trying, yes.
Okay, very good. Yes,
I got it. Yeah.
Okay, very good. So there are some options there. You can choose up to 3 options. Okay. Okay, this is what it looks like. I've tried this several times with a larger number of teachers from different parts of the world, and this is what I normally get. Yeah, so these are typical responses of teachers about some of the factors that sort of determine the quality of a good teacher. So a good teacher is somebody who is knowledgeable. It's somebody who is very good at delivering the subject matter in teaching in the classroom. And number 3 is relationship, basically rapport. How good or how bad is your relationship with your students? And there are some many other things that are also very important. Yeah. Okay, so that is the first T. Again, the first T is you. And research actually tells us that the teacher variable is one of the most underutilized factors in improving students' motivation. So one thing you can do is to, if you feel that your knowledge is not up there, then you need to try to sort of continue your professional development activities and make sure that you acquire the kind of knowledge that is needed for teaching the subject matter. And number 2 is delivery, which is very important. Another point that I'm going to go through very quickly. Number 4 is about human relationship. Yeah, it's not about teaching, it's not about knowledge, it's about how you connect with your students. Extremely important. Whether and to what extent you are perceived by your students to be a warm teacher, somebody who is approachable, somebody who, you know, the students can ask questions without feeling, you know, intimidated. That is a good source of motivation or demotivation for your students. Okay, so I'm done with the first T. The second T is delivery. The second T is the teaching method. The teaching method. Yep. Now, teachers have different ways of doing things in the classroom. I have here some of the most commonly used teaching methodology in different parts of the world. Lecturing is one of the most common teaching style that a lot of teachers use. Yeah, I think in the old days, lecturing is very popular, but nowadays I think people try to not depend solely on lecturing style. So seminar style of teaching is now becoming very popular. So instead of the teacher going through the materials for the whole 1 hour or 2 hours, now they try to reduce the amount of lecture, maybe to half an hour. And then the rest is for the students to have a, you know, a very warm and interesting discussion about the topic of the lecture. Inquiry-based is also very popular. Inquiry-based is also known as problem-based. Again, after a small lecture, like 15 or 20 minutes, the students are given a problem for them to solve. Now, this is particularly relevant in today's, you know, learning environments. The students can explore the topic using resources that are available on the internet, and they can work together, interact with the teacher, interact with the other students to find a solution to a problem. Now, this kind of learning is likely to be more motivating compared to a lecture style of teaching. Flipped classroom. Again, flipped classroom is very popular these days. In fact, the past few weeks, I've been using this particular method to engage my students, to get them to be more excited about learning. What I do is I would send materials 1 week before. Now using, you know, some tools, some applications, and then the students then respond to some of my discussion questions online. This is like 1 week before the face-to-face lesson in the classroom. And once we are in the classroom, then we go deeper into the topic. We have a lot of discussion, the students talking to each other, the teacher is there helping with the structure of the conversation in the classroom. Now, this kind of teaching is also likely to be very motivating to your students because they are thinking, they are doing, they are exploring, they are expanding their knowledge together in the context of either online or face-to-face classroom situations. The key thing to remember when you teach, whether it's online or on-site, with regard to teaching methodology, is these 3 very important things. The first one is the key takeaways. When you start your lesson, make sure that you mention this very clearly. So after you say, you know, your usual greeting, good morning, and things like that, right away mention to your students, today, this is what I want you to learn together with me. Kavita, do you remember what we are What is the main takeaway of today's lesson?
60s. I hope that's
Yes, the 60s. That is on my slide number 1, isn't it?
How to motivate.
Exactly.
How?
Yes. The best way to motivate is to improve the quality of our teaching. Yeah. So that is
Yes.
the main takeaway. And how to do that? 60s. Now you have to keep mentioning this maybe 2 or 3 times. At the beginning, in the middle, and at the end. So that is point number 1, yeah? I think if you do this, I think your students will be more focused. The students will be more interested in your lesson. Number 2, the structure, the organization of your presentation, the organization of your lesson, keep it as simple as possible. Yeah. The easier it is for the students to follow, the better it is. I hope you remember the structure of my presentation basically is the what, the why, and the how. Yeah, and the focus of my presentation today is on the how. And the how is divided up into 6 T's. Very straightforward, very simple. And the last one is variety. Do not use the same style of teaching every day or every week. Variety is what makes life interesting and exciting. Within one lesson, maybe just one variety. But in a week, if you are teaching the students in 3 different lessons, each one will need to be different from the first one and the third one. So variety is very important. So sometimes you want to do a lecture style, sometimes seminar style, sometimes inquiry-based learning, sometimes flipped classroom. Yeah. So don't stick with the same way of teaching. The students get tired. The students get bored because of that. Okay, we are done with the first 2 T's. Yeah, the first T. What is the first T again? The first T is, Kapita, the first T is the teacher.
Teacher.
Right. The second T is
Methodology.
the teaching methodology. Very good. And the third one is the teaching materials. Yeah, the text, the teaching materials. Now, I was reminded of this, very easy quote, very easy and memorable quote that I saw many, many years ago. And that is still true today. As long as you are a teacher, this statement is or will always be true. Yeah. Sometimes the students are not motivated, not because you are not interesting, not because your teaching method is not interesting, but it's because the materials that you use are not exciting. The materials that you use are not interesting for the students. Yeah, in the absence of interesting texts, very little is possible. So try to keep that in mind. And people have tried to describe the kind of materials that are motivating from the student's perspective. Number 1, it has to be compelling. Compelling means it has to be something that is so interesting. It has to be something that keeps the students asking questions like, what is next? What happens if? Yeah. So materials that get the students to ask questions is what I would call compelling. It's like when you read a novel. When you read a novel and the novel is about somebody who gets killed, for example. As you read, you keep on asking this question. So who is the bad guy? Who is the bad guy? Why was, the person killed in the first place? You keep on asking these questions. And that is the kind of materials that is likely to be exciting for your students. Number two seems like a very sensible thing to me, comprehensible. Now, this is particularly important if you teach students who are not very proficient in the medium of instruction. So we need to be very careful that your materials are at the student's level so that they can follow you, they can understand you. The materials will have to be comprehensible, and the way you explain, the way you talk, the way you clarify things will have to be comprehensible as well. I think after you've been teaching for 5 years or so, you have a sense of whether you're speaking too fast, whether you are speaking too slowly, and that's not good either, and whether the students are able to follow your explanation very clearly or not. In other words, we are looking for materials that are just right. It's not too easy, it's not too hard, just at that level. Yeah. But how do you know whether the students find your explanation, whether your students find the materials that they're using are at their level, comprehensible and compelling? Sometimes it's not very easy because the students keep on nodding their head in the classroom, whether or not they understand you. Yeah. So a good thing for you to do will be to maybe, get 5 students, take them to lunch, buy pizza or something, have a small party, and then you can ask them questions, and they will be, more honest in that context. But in the classroom, students tend to say yes, yes, yes all the time. Okay. Now, these days, or in the past, we tended to use verbal text or print materials. But today, I think increasingly, we need to use materials that are multimodal in nature. And that is what I've been using as well in my own teaching. Materials that the students can see, the students can read, and the students can see the visuals, the audio, and things like that, multimodal materials. Now, this semester, something that I am trying now, and it seems to be working very well. In my university, I teach content courses, pedagogical courses, courses on how to teach reading, for example, courses on second language acquisition and things like that. And I think you will agree with me that the readings, the required readings, the books that people often use in these courses are the kind known as academic text. Academic texts are very dense. They're very difficult to read. They're difficult for you. They're even more difficult for your students. Do you have to use them? The answer is yes, you do, because that is how you introduce your students to this new genre called academic genre. Yeah, but this semester, I am using a different type as well. So in addition to the usual academic text, journal articles and things like that, I am also using texts drawn from the popular sources, the more popular sources. For example, from TED. Another source on education is Edutopia, EDUTOPIA. It has a lot of very interesting articles written in non-academic styles, very accessible and very comprehensible as well. So this semester I'm using both. And true enough, the students are more engaged, the students are more excited because they feel that they can relate to this kind of genre very well. Okay, another point that I want to share with you is this. Again, in an online environment, in the digital world, or when you teach using digitally mediated materials, then you will find that digital texts are shareable, and that is one big plus. The other one is more interactive. You can interact. You can get the students to interact with the text. It's annotatable. That's another big plus. So when you send the materials online to your students, the students can actually annotate the materials. Instead of taking a separate notes, they can annotate it on the screen right away. One very interesting technological tool or application that is very popular with teachers is one that is called Edpuzzle. With Edpuzzle, you can send a video clip to your students and you can insert questions. You can insert a discussion task somewhere in the middle or at the end of the video materials. And the process is very, very easy. It's just amazing. I've seen so many useful technological tools that have been created in the past 9 months. And I find this really, really very useful. So Edpuzzle is one of them. Extremely easy to use. So instead of just sending materials for the students to read, you can add tasks, activities, and you can insert these tasks in the video or in the verbal text as well. Okay. Now this is another technique that I've been using. Never talk non-stop for 1 hour. That's a very bad methodology. So now is a good time for me or for us to take a very short break. The first 3 T's: teacher, teaching methodology, and text. Which of the first 3 T's do you feel that you need to work on, you feel that you need to improve on? Can you please scan the QR code on the right-hand side? This is an application, very useful application called Padlet. So click on it. I'm sorry, you can't click on it. Scan the QR code. It will take you to the Padlet page. I'm going to show you what it looks like. And it will take you right here. Just give me 1 second here. It should take you right here. When you get to this page, what you need to do is to click on the plus button. The plus button is located at the bottom right-hand corner. If you click on it, I'm showing it to you now. There you go. And then you can stop typing.
Can you put the link in the chat?
Yes. Yes, I will do that now. Let me see if I can find the chat now. Yes, the chat is here. I'm going to put the link here there. There you go. The link is in the chat. You can just click on it. So the first 3 T's, which one do you feel that you need to improve on?
Can I share my opinion, sir?
Type first. Afterwards, you can share orally. But first of all, because I'm showing you an application that I have been using and I find very useful for teaching, yeah? Please write some more, not just teacher or text, but write something else. There you go. Teaching methods need to add variety. Okay, very good. Please write some more, write 2 or 3 sentences. More, please, please, please don't be stingy. Please write some more. Yes, this is good. Okay, improve on teaching style, need to add variety. More, please, more. Yes, I need to work on compelling. Yes, finding compelling materials for your students. Very good. One more, please. Yes, need to choose more interesting materials. It's not very easy, but you can always ask your students what materials are likely to be more exciting for them. Okay, I think we are good now. Yeah, the first 3 T's are done. Oh, look at that, very long. I like your appearance shirt color, and so I feel that we need to look for that too. Yes, the color of your dress is very important too. Okay, let me just continue now. There you go. So we are done with the first 3 T's, and now we are ready to move on to the next one. Yeah. Okay. The task. Remember, the text is important, but the task that goes with the text is also very, very important. I'd like to introduce you to this 5E model on the right-hand side, the 5E models. The 5E models have these 5 components, all beginning with the letter E. The first one is engage, and then explain, explore, elaborate, and finally evaluate. Remember, in your lesson, if you want your students to feel excited, if you want your students to enjoy your lesson, make sure that you involve them mentally, emotionally, and also socially as well. So that is the engagement level. And when you get the students to explain, to explore, to elaborate, and also to assess their own learning, I think they are more likely to be excited, to be more focused in your lesson. Let me give you an example. Remember what I said earlier on, I am teaching a course on language teaching methodology, language acquisition, and so on and so forth. And one of the topics is this, how to teach vocabulary. Okay, so the topic is teaching vocabulary. And I'm going to show you how I engage my students and how I explain first and then ask the students to explain, and then how I get the students to further explore the topic, and then also how the students can then apply the ideas by elaborating on possible pedagogical applications in the classroom, and finally getting them to assess their own learning. So these are 5 E's that I've been using, and I find this really, really very powerful, and the students are fully engaged in my lesson. Engage. So this is how I started my lesson about 2 weeks ago. I began by asking this question to the students. Which one is more important in language learning, grammar or vocabulary? Oh boy, they get very excited, and they spend about 5-10 minutes discussing, debating, exchanging ideas, and so on and so forth. And at the end of it, I mentioned to them that, well, both are important, but vocabulary is probably more important because this is the building blocks of language learning. Grammar is what makes these words stick together. So that is how I engage my students. The next bit, in fact, my whole lecture the other day was only about 15 minutes. And this is where I came in at the explanation stage. So I spent about 20 minutes explaining what does it mean to know a word, what is the language theory behind vocabulary learning and what are the psychological processes that are involved in learning vocabulary. So this one is rather teacher-centered because this is where I spend time explaining to the students about the importance of vocabulary. The next one is this. Again, this is where the students, SS here stands for students spending time discussing the topic of the lecture. I got them to spend about 10-15 minutes exploring the relationship between vocabulary and language skills. Now, language skills include reading, listening, speaking, and writing. So they discuss in their group, they explore the internet, they look at sources to help them, understand the topic at the deeper level. Yeah, so this is the first 3 E's. The next one is elaborate. Now, this one is getting even more interesting. Remember, this is all student driven with some, directions from the teacher. So the next bit is for the students to explore further, to elaborate on their understanding, and for them to discuss a set of principles for teaching vocabulary. So they spend time discussing again. And finally, this is the evaluation bit, actually. This is where I provide a Google document. Remember, a Google document is a shareable document. So I sent the link to the students, and individually and in group, the students write in full sentences their thoughts about 1 or 2 of the most important principles for teaching vocabulary. Yeah. And I have about 15 students in my class. So what I had eventually was something like 30 principles. And I wasn't happy with 30 principles. So I stretched the students further and asked them to reduce the number from 30 to just 10. Again, that requires a lot more thinking, that requires a lot more discussion until the students eventually are able to come up with 10 principles. And at the end of it all, I asked 3 students to edit the final list. It's not just a sentence, but each principle is about 1 or 2 paragraphs long. And finally, this is the final product. Yeah, the 10 principles are then put together in a nice looking ebook like this that I created for the students. And very soon, this ebook will be made public through the social media for the world to see, basically. Now, this kind of learning is likely to be interesting, it's likely to be motivating, it's likely for the students to spend a lot of effort willingly during the process of learning. So again, the task, as much as possible, think about the 5 E's. Yeah, the topic should be engaging. It allows students to explain, to explore, to elaborate, and finally to self-assess their own learning in this way. Okay, next one. T5 is test. This is a little bit tricky because the test is often a source of anxiety. The test is, or examination is very often a source of, low motivation among the students. But what I'm suggesting is that we should look at tests not as tests, but as assessment. And the moment we look at tests as assessment, we can make a distinction between assessment of learning and also assessment for learning. Of learning means you are testing what the students know, but for learning basically is you try to get information from the students so that you can further support their learning. Yeah, assessment for learning is something that a lot of educators are implementing these days. It's small, it's also frequent. In my module, for example, I have 5 assessment components. 5, small, 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 and the last one is rather big, worth about 50%. But the other 4 components worth smaller, about 10% here, 15% here, and 20% there. More importantly, I think we can assess our students in multiple ways as well, not just in one way. Multiple means a variety of ways. And that is also the tendency these days. This way of assessment is also more interesting and more motivating for the students. Let me just give you some examples. Yeah. I was actually surprised when I did a Google search, and oh boy, there are so many ideas out there. Just this website give me like 62 ways to check students' comprehension. Yeah. So later you can Google this and enjoy the information that is available there. But my point is that there is no one best way. I think what we need to do is to have a variety of assessment procedures so that we can get a lot more from the students, and the students will find the assessment procedures more interesting and motivating as well. Now here's another example. Again, later you can Google this. You'll be able to find the information right there on your fingertip. 52 ways to check understanding. More here. Again, these are very practical ideas that you can try in your teaching in Oman or in Dhofar University. There you go. That's another one. So the key thing to remember again is that assessment can be made more interesting. Assessment or testing can be made more exciting. Think about variety and think about different and multiple ways to assess student learning. I think that is the key message about T number 5, which is testing. And finally, T number 6 is technology. Yes, in online learning, basically, you have no choice. You have to use technology. But the way I see it, going forward, after the pandemic is over, I think we will be using technology in the classroom during the face-to-face learning or during blended learning environments as well. So my advice to all of us here is to start learning, to start exploring tools or applications that you can use for teaching, whether online or on-site teaching. Now, I am very fortunate because the past 8 months, I've been learning a lot about technological tools, and I've been using them for my own teaching, whether I teach in the classroom or whether I teach outside online. Now, the big question is this: does technology improve learning? That is a big question. Does technology improve learning? The answer is, it depends. If you use it well, if you use it wisely, I think it can. Yeah. So you should not be using technology just for the sake of using technology. I think this guy has a very good piece of advice for us. To improve education, focus on pedagogy. Pedagogy is teaching methodology, delivery, yeah, and not technology. Technology is a tool. Use the tool in order to improve on your teaching, improve on the quality of your teaching. So this is my advice to all of us. Use technology to enhance your pedagogy, not the other way around, yeah? And number 2, very important, this is very practical thing, find easy to use. It's not worth spending hours and hours learning how to use a new application. Not useful, it's a waste of time. So find small, useful technological tools, and also find those that are free. Like the ones I showed you earlier on, Mentimeter is free, Padlet is free. Well, you can pay for it if you want more features, You can pay for it, but the free version is usually quite good enough. Now, the next question is how many tools do you need? If you ask me, I would say about 5 or 6, that's all. Yeah, if you know more, that's fine. But I think you just need a small number of very useful technological tools. Let me share with you. Again, this is a very useful source that I mentioned to you, Edutopia. It has a lot of information on education. Here is one that I saw recently, 10 teacher picks for best tech tools. Again, later you can Google it and read the article. So roughly, these are things that are mentioned there. These are things that I've been using myself. Very, very useful. Peer Deck is PowerPoint tools, actually. Yeah, the usual PowerPoint tools is static. Now, if you use Peer Deck, your PowerPoints can be more interactive. You can send your slides to your students, and your students can respond to some of the questions that you include in your PowerPoint slides. It's called Peer Deck. Very easy. You just go to YouTube videos and find 1 or 2 tutorials there, and you'll be able to use it almost immediately. Yeah, I mentioned this because it's easy to use and it is free. It's called Peer Deck. If you have been using Google Slides, this one is just an add-on. So if you go to Google Slides, you can just add this on, and it will allow you to create slides that are more interactive. Mentimeter is a very popular tool that teachers use to gauge students' responses during your teaching almost immediately. Yeah, sorry. Wakelet is another useful tool that I've been using. It's like an online storage that is interactive. You can post articles, you can post links, you can post videos, and you can send this to your students before your class, and the students can respond to it. And then during your meeting with them, you can explore the topics or the ideas further with your students. Yeah. So I mentioned this because it's really, really very easy and useful to use. So later tonight, you can go to YouTube and find some tutorial information. And then Padlet Flipgrid is another very popular tool. It's a video sharing application that is very useful for students to use. Okay, I think I'm going to skip this one because it's already 7 o'clock here. What I want you to do, no, I think I'm going to stay with this for about 2 or 3 minutes. The last 3 T's, the task, the test, and technology. Yeah. Now, which of the 3 do you feel that you need to work on, to improve on? Now, this time, just use the chat box there. So start typing in the chat box. Which of the last 3 T's do you feel that you still need to work on? Oh, technology, very good. Kavita, please say more. Watch D, please say more. Technology.
Because we need to, develop ourselves. Always, every day we have updated technology. Yes. And we should update ourselves for it.
I agree, yes, yes. Like I said, to you just now, the past 12 months, I've been completely updating myself, with all these technological tools, and I'm using them now for my teaching. But again, the key thing is not to try to learn or to learn too many tech tools. Just pick some that you find are most useful for your teaching. Like this 6, extremely useful. If you use this alone, more than enough. Okay, I think we have come now to the end of our session. Now, please turn on your microphone. All of you, please turn on your microphone. And please say together what T1 is. T1
Teacher.
Is very good. Yes. T2.
Teaching method.
Very
Teaching
good.
method.
Teaching methodology. T3,
Method. Text.
the text. Yes, very good. Next one. T4,
Task.
the task. Yes. T5,
Test.
the test. Yes. And finally,
Technology.
technology. Yes. Well done. Now this is my slides. You can scan it and you can keep a copy of my slides. Oops, sorry.
Can I ask a question, sir?
Yes. Just give me 1 second. Let people scan my QR code first so that they get a copy of my slides. Yeah, done?
Okay, what about evening classes? We have some students in the evening and they are working employee.
Yes.
And how can we motivate evening classes? Because they come tired and I need to experience that.
Yeah, Hamza, I think you asked a very good question. Now it just happens that I am also teaching evening classes. And because of that, I need to work extra hard. I need to make sure that my quality of teaching, the way I deliver the lesson is engaging, the materials are exciting, and then I do not speak, do not talk for 2 hours. I don't. Because that is very, very bad for students, especially students who attend your evening classes. They're just too tired to listen to you. Yeah, give them something exciting to do. Give them something to work on using technology like Padlet, using Mentimeter. Give them an opportunity to explore, engage them emotionally and also mentally as well. I think that is our best bet. There's not much you can do, asking them to not work in the morning, you can't. So the best thing you can do is to change the way you do things in the classroom. Yeah, which is what today's session is all about, to improve students' motivation. The best thing for us to do is to improve the quality of our teaching. And how do we improve the quality of our teaching? We need to focus on things that are under our control. Evening classes, you can't control. But the way you teach, you can. The way you speak, you can. The way you relate to your students, you can change that. Well, in fact, research actually tells us that students learn best, students get very motivated if and only if they like their teachers. Now, this is very, very serious. Yeah. So from time to time, you need to ask your students whether you are a likable teacher. So you need to take a test from time to time. Yeah. Your likability index, whether it's 60%, 80%, 100%. Now, this one is real and this one is commonsensical as well. Yeah. Why do you have best friends? Because you like them. Why do you marry your wife? Because you like her, right? Why do you marry your husband? Because you like her. Very easy. In the classroom, the same thing. The students will learn a lot more if and only if they like you. But how do you make them like you? That's a question for you, for all of you tonight. How can you make them like you? Kavita, do you have any suggestion?
I think
Can I share my experience?
sorry.
Yes, Kavita.
I think conceptual clarity and the knowledge of the teacher automatically makes the student to like the teacher.
Very good. Yes.
The teacher may be very strict, but in spite of it, they may not, which they may not like. But in spite of it, when the teacher has got conceptual clarity and is good in making things clear and easy for them in terms of understanding, I think that the students will like the teacher.
Very good. Good idea. Good thoughts. Yes. Good thinking. Anything else? I think Hamza mentioned puzzles, using puzzles. Yeah, puzzles are
Yes,
interesting.
because I'm teaching math.
Oh, you're teaching mathematics, yes. Puzzles are, yes.
So I'm using puzzles.
Yes, Hamza, I'm glad you mentioned that. Yes, Hamza, can you mention one word from psychology? One word from psychology that makes puzzles exciting and interesting.
Engagement.
Engagement,
all
yes.
the students, they share ideas.
Yes.
Engagement.
Okay. One word beginning with C.
Sometimes sometimes can I say something? Sometimes I ask,
yes.
I'm talking now 10 minutes for the students to explain something. When I give puzzle, all the students, they share their ideas. I say, what are you?
Yes. 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 I think the word we are looking for is curious. Curiosity is extremely important. If you can make your students curious about what they are learning, I think you will be able to increase their level of motivation. When they are curious, their attention, their focus will be very much higher. They will spend a lot more cognitive effort in order to close the gap, in order to find the answers, in order to solve the puzzles. So that is one kind of learning which is highly motivating. So I'm glad that you mentioned puzzles, Hamza. Yeah. It doesn't matter whether you teach mathematics or other subject areas, language or non-language areas. I think curiosity. Remember what I said early on when I began my lesson on vocabulary teaching? I give them a sort of a puzzle. Which one is more important, grammar or vocabulary? And they spend a lot of time actually discussing it until they finally are able to find an answer. Yes, Mohammed.
Yeah, Dr. Vijay was asking some question.
Oh, Dr. Vijay, yes.
He was.
May I ask a question, please?
Yeah, please.
Yes.
Yes. Dr. Vijay, just wondering if I could get your input on this. I find majority of my students, when I assign them tasks, there's a strong link with exam. Is it going to be in the exam teacher? So I'm just wondering how can I maneuver my students from just thinking about exam to doing this because of the joy of doing this, of what they could get the benefit out of it. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, Serena, do you have your video? Can I have your video on, please? Serena,
I've got to put on my hijab. 1 second, please.
Okay. Yes, Serena, the trick, I know what you mean. Yes, students are very practical people. Yeah, they spend time and effort when it is something that comes with a reward or something. And exam is always in the back of students' mind. So the little trick that I usually do is, at the beginning of the lesson, I would mention to the students, today's lesson is the most important. I always say that to my students, and you will be able to see some of the ideas in the exam.
Okay, I'll use that trick. Thank you.
Yes, but that is what external motivation is all about, isn't it? Extrinsic motivation. I have nothing against extrinsic motivation. Things like competition is good. Things like test results. I think these are things that we can use to increase students' extrinsic motivation. But eventually, what is more important is intrinsic motivation. Intrinsic motivation usually means that the students are curious, the students are excited, they really want to know the answer, they really want to spend effort on their own because the answers are rewarding. And one way, again, there are many other ways out there. One way to do this will be to think about how you can organize your lesson, how you can organize your task in terms of the 5 E's. The 5 E's are really, really very powerful. Yeah, the first E, remember, is engage. The second E is explain. Now, explain here means the teacher explaining, but later the students will also need to explain. So this is called accountability. Learning eventually is something that the students need to do, not you. You don't need to learn in the classroom. You do, but more importantly, it's the students who does the learning. So explaining and then going further and going deeper, exploring and elaborating. And never end your lesson until you get to the last E, which is evaluation. It's not just about you evaluating the students, but it's empowering your students to assess their own learning.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the 5 E's, remember, they need to go together. I think if you do that, I think the students will not be thinking, Serena, they will not be thinking about exams only. Yes, exams are important, but there are other things that are really, really important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Billy. That was really useful input.
Sure thing.
Yes. Professor Willie.
Yes, sir.
Very good afternoon to you, sir, and to all of my colleagues. I just want to take this opportunity to thank you on behalf of Dhofar University, on behalf of Center for Teaching and Learning here on campus. This is a very profound, thought-provoking session that I really thank you for. We cannot wait to have you here on campus with us after the pandemic.
Yes, when the virus is gone.
Yeah, hopefully during our conference in October. I don't have any comment or any question. I just want to thank you and thank all of my colleagues, Dr. Muhammad, for chairing the session and all the wonderful thoughts and all the wonderful chats that are happening. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much. When the dean is here, that means that the dean is very much supporting you on your ongoing, professional development activities. I think people everywhere now believes on the importance of lifelong learning, of life deep learning, and also life wide learning. Now, these three things now go together. It's not just lifelong, but also life deep and life wide learning.
Thank you, sir.
Learning never ends.
Sure
Yes.
thing.
Yes.
Yeah. Any other
One last question? Yeah.
Yeah, can I ask a question?
Yes,
Yeah.
Vijay, yes. Go ahead.
You talked about 6 T's.
Yes.
My question is, can we add the 7th T?
Oh, I like that. This is what extending learning is all about. I like it. Yes, please go ahead, Vijay.
This sounds like BJ, by the way.
This
What
is
is it? The 7T? Yes.
treatment, the way we treat our students.
I like that. Yes. Very good. Yes. That reminds me of the 7 Habits by Stephen Covey. 7 is a good number. So in my next session, I am going to add that into my 7th. Acknowledgement, Vijay, Vijay Thakur, Dhofar University.
Yeah.
I like that. Yes, yes.
And
I think the idea has to do with the student well-being.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think if we treat them well, they will treat us well as well. So that's why, yes, that's why when I ask you the question, how can you make your students like you? The answer is you have to like them first. Can I say that again? You, the teacher, have to like them first. The feeling is usually reciprocal. If you like them first, chances are very high that they will like you back.
And
so I like you, you like me, and we like each other. That's the way to go. That's how,
and I will always remain likable consistently.
Oh yes, likable is very important. Yes. Otherwise, your wife will get very upset with you if you're not likable.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you very much, Willie, for a wonderful, interesting, and interactive session full with motivation.
Yes.
You really try to point out the most important T's responsible for student motivation. Yeah, you try to remind how a teacher appearance in class can be helpful in motivating students, and how a teacher can use different variety of teaching style and compel them to wait for what is next. I believe, and everyone will agree, that the 5E model shared by you is really very effective, and it will be very effective. Honestly, Willie, we too were afraid of the possibility of you using the T5, that is test at the end of the session. So there was no test, luckily.
But so I did. I give you a test and you pass, you know, and I show you the last slide.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
You rightly reminded that technology can be used to enhance pedagogy, but not to improve education. Hence, we need to focus on pedagogy and not technology.
Yes.
And I am sure that this session will definitely improve the motivation and quality of teaching at Dhofar University. Thank you very much, Willie. And thank you to all the attendees. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Big hands for Mohammed and for everyone, please.
Thank you very much.
Clap, 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 everyone. Clap, clap, clap.
Thank you.
I've just sent the link to you. That's my website. It's willierenandia.com, and you'll be able to find a lot of completely free materials, ebooks, resources on pedagogy, on language teaching, and on education in general. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Have a good evening.
Oh, very good evening to you as well. Okay, thank you. Good day.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Bye-bye now.